So if you're friends with me on Facebook, you don't have to watch this video. I already did a book review, but I did not show my smiling face. So maybe you want to watch it for my smiling face. I don't know. Anyway, this is the book that took me about, 2 weeks, maybe 3 to read. It was a good, no, I'd say great book. And the fact that it was 'tis the season for a matchmaking grandma on a long-distance mission. Mistletoe temptation in every doorway. A sexy cowboy with a killer smile. When Presley agrees to sell Creed Riley the Rockin' Sea Ranch for a song at Christmas time, he can hardly believe his good fortune. There's just one little catch. Her tantalizing granddaughter, Sage, is part of the deal. Now I want to read you what the author wrote, which I wish she would have wrote it before instead of after. And then I'm going to read you the parts of the book that stuck out to me. Of course, with the grandma being involved, it was very hard, and at times I'd find myself putting the book down because it just touched me, said that much. Dear readers, welcome to Palo Duro Canyon. Creed Riley has found the ranch of his dreams in the big crater out in the Texas Panhandle, just in time for Christmas. There are a couple little stipulations in the deal. He has to live on the ranch for 3 weeks before he and the owner signs the legal forms. And he has to agree to let her granddaughter live on the ranch as long as she wants. No problem. And then the snowstorm blows in, shuts down the electricity, and the roads are closed into and out of the canyon. He and the granddaughter are stuck in a small house together with an ugly stray mutt and a mama cat. He's determined that he is buying the ranch. She's determined to change her grandmother's mind about selling and about his buying. Husband and I discovered the Palo Duro Canyon when we were out on a research trip south of the area. A little town called Post, Texas was the place I had in mind to set this book. But something was not right for the place of Mistletoe Cowboy. So we drove on and on and on until we reached Silverton. I almost had a feeling about the place, but when we drove north toward Claude, mentioned in the Darn Good Cowboy Christmas, gotta find that book, found the canyon, I knew that I'd found the setting for Mistletoe Cowboy. Husband and I made several trips to the canyon before this book, which was actually finished. It's an amazing place with its rock formations rising up like castles or huge chimneys to heights so tall that the eagles nesting at the tops look like tiny toys. It's desolate, lonely land, dotted with mesquite and scrub oak and cows, but there's something about it that said love and romance could be found there with the right characters at the right time. Mistletoe Cowboy is the 5th book in the Spikes and Spurs series. If you're enjoying the series, keep your boots on. There is another on the way. Jimna O'Donnell finally gets her story told in Just a Cowboy and His Baby in December. Sometime in 2013, Dwar O'Donnell will finish up Spikes and Spurs series with his story. Special thanks, as always, goes to Awesome Source Books staff for their dedication, their work on this book, to all those behind the scenes whose names I don't even know. Thank you. A big thanks to my amazing editor, Deb Workshman, for all she does, to all who continue to read my books. Tell your neighbors, your friends, tell them, review them in your book clubs, pass your used copies on to your best friends. Please know that you are appreciated. Happy reading, in Carolyn Brown. Carolyn, I gotta tell you, you wrote a really good book in this one, and it was so heart-touching to me for my own reason. And again, if he watches this, I would say I'm sorry again. I can't say I'm not sorry enough, just saying. Page 59. She never had a pet, Sage hadn't, and she didn't know she even wanted one. And she hears her grandma's voice in her head. I didn't even want pets, so what makes the difference, she said aloud. In her head, I wanted you to have a pet because you needed something to love that wouldn't leave you. Looks like you got them because they needed you. It was her grandma's voice again, but Sage just nodded in agreement. Could that be the cowboy needs you too? Sage set her mouth firmly and said, now that is enough. Page 79, Creed asks, so you have a fear of commitment? Hold on. Okay. Don't say that. Why? I've heard it before and I don't have any fears. I'm just a careful woman. Fear is one thing, caution is another. Besides, if I had fear, it wouldn't be of commitment, it would be of abandonment, and Grand ain't helping ain't one damn bit in that business. Well, I'm honest enough to say that I have the big C word fear. It's the only thing that makes me shake in my boots after my fiancée pulled off her stunt. I'm gun shy when it comes to relationships. You don't? You? I don't believe it. Believe it, darling, I'm a flirt, but when it comes to trusting enough to give my whole heart to put through a meat grinder, well, that's another matter. Guess we make a pretty damn good pair to get stuck in a blizzard together. Okay, page 116. Creed and Sage are asking more Q&A between the two, and they're getting more personal. How old are you? Sage asked bluntly. I might ask you the same thing, but a gentleman never asks a woman about her age or her weight. I was 26 in September. I went to college for 2 years, came home and started painting full-time, sold a few, and then I got a fantastic break when my professor dropped my name to a gallery owner in Denver. What I weigh is between me and the bathroom scales, and if they ever start talking, I will take a hammer to them. Your turn. Creed laid down his spoon. I was 28 on the first day of October. I have a bachelor's degree in agriculture business. All I've ever known is ranching and farming, like you already know. I was engaged once. I've sworn off permanent relationships. What about your love life, Sage? I love painting. Seems that men have this crazy notion that I have commitment issues. Imagine that. Sage didn't want to talk about that big, dark C word, so she changed the subject. Don't eat too much. You'll want to save room for ice cream, and besides, Noelle looks like she's still hungry. So then we move on to page 147, where Sage... Hold on a second. Well, she wants Grandma to not sell, and she's conflicted with her feelings for Creed. And that's where he says, what's on your mind, Sage? Creed asked when they reached the back porch. Decorating, she said. You've been pretty quiet all morning. Something happened out there on that rock formation. What did you see? What is probably a glimpse of the future. And that makes you mad? Why mad? She asked. Because it did not make you happy, or you would have reacted differently. Not mad, but sad. I don't adapt too well to change. I like my rut. I love it, as a matter of fact. It is my stability, my rock, and I know what's happening next. That's not life, darling. I know, but I don't have to like it. That part kind of reminded me of how stubborn I can be from time to time. Page 212. Creed asked Sage, do you believe in happily ever after they had watched a movie together? Only in books and movies. Does that sound familiar? She pulled the quilt from back of the sofa over them. He put an arm around her and pushed a strand of her electrified hair out of her face. She pushed a button on the remote and the music at the start of the movie began. Until that moment, Creed had never realized that the movie was a chick flick before chick flicks were even popular. The first song, they talked about the birds and the bees, the flowers and the trees, until they were up to their knees in love. Okay, and then we're going to move to page 297. After their first official date, which was okay until they both saw their exes from their past, Creed was then convinced that he was wrong about Sage being his soulmate. He was prepared to leave her a note and leave, and was going to leave until Sage catches him in the act and confronted him. You are leaving? Sage hugged herself against the wind. Looks that way. I was already in the truck, pulling out when I saw the insulation in the back. I don't like leaving jobs unfinished. I'll drill a couple of holes to snake out the electric cord into the house, pull the bulbs inside in the attic, so then you can move them out when you get ready. I'm not moving them. That was your idea, Creed Riley. You shoved them out into the cold. You better get back inside. You're going to freeze to death, he said. What would you care? You wouldn't even know about it if I did. I could fall and break an arm and not be able to get a doctor, but you wouldn't give a damn. You'd be gone. I was a fool to trust you. I was an idiot to think we might have something. Nobody finds their soulmate in 2 weeks. Her voice got louder with every word. She was shocked when he crossed the porch, picked her up, and carried her back inside the house. Her head rested on his chest, and through the thick coverall she could hear his heart thumping every bit as fast as hers. Noelle raced inside the house with them, and didn't stop until she was curled up around her hungry puppies. But Sage wasn't even aware of the dog. Creed sat down on the sofa with her and grabbed a fluffy throw to wrap around her feet. I don't want to leave, he said. Those first 5 words were better to Sage than winning any lottery. I don't want you to go, she whispered, and I'm sorry. About yesterday, I can't begin to explain, but it all came down on my head at one time. Next time, trust me enough to talk to me about it. Don't shut me out, Sage. Tell me what's bugging you, and we'll work through it together, he said. Is there going to be a next time? You are leaving. I think I'll stick around for a while, he grinned. You don't like to milk cows, and you are too soft-hearted to put those animals outside. And I hate to think those 2 perfectly fine houses will be sitting empty. I love you, she said softly. Creed's kiss was long and hard and lingering. She tried to melt her body into his, with one becoming with him, but the damn throw was in the way, and she tugged it away from them and tossed it on the floor. She pulled it back. It's crazy, I know it is. We've known each other for less than 3 weeks. Soulmates know. His kiss was more demanding, however, somewhat hotter and sweeter at the same time. Did you? She mumbled as his lips left her and worked their way down to the hollow part of her neck. I knew it before you did. She pushed him back and just stared into his eyes. They had all gone soft and dreamy, like she loved. When did you know? You have to find out more on that part. Page 300. The puppy's eyes are open, and Creed tells Sage that he loves her. Oh, I get it. She leaned forward and collected the kiss coming her way. Symbolic, ain't it? They open their eyes on the same day the houses are finished, and the day that we are finally open ours. Oh, gosh, that is so good. Okay, on to chapter 19. While visiting graves, which she's visiting her parents' grave and her grandpa's grave, she puts poinsettias out there for Christmas time. And she tells them that Creed has filled her heart, the holes in her heart, and with life, and not to worry that Creed is a good man. Why? Because Grandma picked Creed for her. And that just, let me tell you, I cried there. I had to put it down. On page 330, read at the asterisk, it says. Went right past it. Okay, here we go. Oh, the wedding. Who gives this woman to be married to this man? The preacher asked, and when Sage and Ada reached the front of the church. I give Sage into Creed's hand. Ada lifted her granddaughter's hand and gave it to Creed. Love her, respect her, or you'll deal with me, she whispered. Yes, ma'am, he said seriously. You may be seated, the preacher told the congregation. Now, for the final book reading. This book gets a 10. It's that good. Maybe it's just because she's got a special connection to her grandma. Maybe it's just because her grandma picked the man for her. Or maybe it's just because it's a cowboy book and it's off the charts great. And mistletoe plays a big part in the book too. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas season or not. Sometimes you just need a good book to remember the good parts in life. And that concludes the book review. Yay! Stay tuned.